Good morning. So today, firstly, a very special welcome to everyone who's here in purpose and in person, and to those who will be here listening or watching. You should know that there's a beautiful community here, and just message me, and you can join us as well. Today, I am going to this is my warning, is the first part of our talk will be somewhat academic, maybe even a little historical. But as per usual, if you get through the academic part and you get through some of these ideas and you sink your teeth into what we're going to be talking about today, I think there's going to be a beautiful little dessert at the end, something that's may be very timely for you and may be very special for you. I don't want to oversell it, but I've been mulling over this for quite a while. I want to open today by introducing one of the biblical super commentaries. His name was Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. He's also known as Nachmanides or the Ramban. He lived from 1194 to 1270. He's considered one of the greatest medieval personalities in the Jewish world, an extraordinary scholar, a philosopher, a physician, a Kabbalist, and of course a biblical commentator. He was raised and he lived in Girona, Spain for most of his life. And toward the end of his life, he was forced to leave Spain after winning a debate, the famous dispositions, as they called them, in 1263 against Pablo Christian, who was a Jew who converted to Christianity. And he was forced to leave after winning that debate and relocated to Jerusalem. He's also considered to be an important figure in the reestablishment of the Jewish community in Jerusalem following its destruction by the Crusaders in 1099. Just a little bit about the Ramban. The Ramban is also from the few commentators who focus on the structure of the Torah. Most commentators focus on the meaning of the verse or the story or the law, but the Ramban also focuses on the structure of the Torah. So I have a tradition that I've been doing for a number of years, and that is every single day there is a portion of the Bible, there's a portion of the Torah for every single day of the week. Each parsha, each portion is divided into 7 parts, and you can do a portion a day. And so I've been doing a portion a day for years, together with Rashi, which is the foremost biblical commentator, and I pick one other commentator every year to focus on. And so a number of years ago, I picked the Ramban so I studied the daily Torah with the Rashi and then with the Ramban. And Nachmanides, the Ramban, he raises a fascinating question about the opening of this week's portion. This week's portion is Lech Lecha. And he asks, maybe it seems like a simple question. What happened to the bio? The Torah constantly introduces us to new characters, and each of those characters assuming different roles and fulfilling different tasks. And before we begin to hear their story, we're usually told a few words about their background. Noah was a tzaddik, right? We know these characters. We know a little bit about them, who they were. The Torah gives us a context, allowing us to understand why they were chosen for their role, right? Just for example, Noah, Torah doesn't begin by telling us that God told him to build an ark. and rescue himself and his family from the flood. First, the Torah gives us the background. The earth was corrupt, and Noah found grace in God's eyes. This is the story of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was wholesome in his generation. Noah walked with God. And then only afterwards does the Torah go on to tell us that God spoke to Noah about the flood and instructed him to build an ark. And so now we understand the context of the ark and the context of the flood. Take Moses. The Torah doesn't begin Moses' story by telling us that God showed up one day in his life and summons him to redeem a people. We don't even know who the people are otherwise, right? First, we learn of his background. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace. And then we learn of how he saved a Jew from an Egyptian beating him to death. How he tried to stop two Hebrews from quarreling. How he saved a young woman from the shepherds harassing them at the Midian well. When Moses is chosen, we already know that here is a man of royal upbringing who knows the workings of the palace. Here's a person of moral courage. And we understand, that's why God chose Moses. And if you go look at Samson or Samuel or David or Jeremiah, each story doesn't emerge from a vacuum. But there's one exception in the entire Torah. In all of the stories of the Tanakh, there is one exception, and maybe, if I can be so bold to say this, maybe its most important figure. At least people would say that today, and that is Abraham. Abraham is an exception to all of this. God said to Abraham, "Go to yourself, from your lands, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you." Why Abraham? Why? Why was he chosen? What did Abraham do to earn this special call from God? The Torah says nothing about Abraham prior to this encounter. All we're told is that at the end of the story of Noah, there's a man named Terach that had 3 sons, Nahor, Abraham, and Haran. Haran died while his father was still alive. Nahor married a woman named Milcah, and Abraham married a woman named Sarai, who was barren. That is it. As far as we are concerned, from the text itself, Abraham is a regular guy living in Haran in present-day Iraq, and that's it. And then suddenly, out of the blue, the Torah tells us how God spoke to Abraham, told him to leave his land, to relocate to a new land, Canaan, and promises him that he'll change the world. God says to him that you'll father a great nation, and that all the nations will become blessed by him. God promises him the lands of Canaan as an eternal inheritance, and turns him into the father of a new civilization, charged with the mission to change the landscape of the planet. The entire rest of the Torah hinges on this opening commandment to Abraham. The rest of the Torah is going to be based on this. And so we want to know a little bit about this person. Let's get introduced to him. Let's understand him. Why him? And to be sure, the Talmud and the Midrashim offer numerous stories about Abraham's youth. Nothing in the actual Torah itself, but there's these incredible stories about his search for God and his search for truth and his endless inquisitiveness and his yearning to discover the origin of existence, and going to the yeshiva of shame, and then his battle with people, a king, his sacrifices for truth, he ends up thrown into a fire. The fire of Ur Kasdim. But from the biblical text, it just seems like a random selection. Not a single narrative is told about Abraham's unique virtues. We have no idea why this person is great. There's not a single verse relating his greatness. And this is the question that the Ramban, that Nachmanides, asks. There are many answers to this question. And today, I want to share one answer that was told by the Sefas Emes, and it's based on a teaching of Kabbalah, a teaching of a Zohar. It's short, it's simple, but had a profound impact on me. The words in Hebrew, Lech Lecha, are always said by God to everyone. It was just Abraham who heard the call. You follow? I'll explain. The Torah doesn't speak of the background of Abraham to explain why God spoke to him, because God didn't speak only to him. God spoke it and speaks it to every single human. Every single one of us. To me, to you, to everyone. God says, go to yourself, from your land, your birthplace, from your father's home to the land that I will show you. It is the divine call to every soul. Communication is about two persons bonding. If I speak, but you do not listen, or I speak and you do not hear, there's so many things that I've heard in my life, but did I really hear them? There's so many things that I know, but do I notice them? So often, I hear something like, wow, and the person will say, I've said this before. Why are you shocked now? And the answer is, I didn't hear it before. I may have heard the words, but I didn't really hear it. So if I speak and you're not listening, or you don't hear it, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking. It's directed at you, but it's not to you because you didn't hear. There's a beautiful distinction in Yiddish that to hear is teheren. That's the word in Yiddish, to teheren. And then there's a word called derher. There's hear, which is her, and then there's derher. Derher means to internalize, to listen. So if I speak and you don't hear, I'm not talking to you, I'm just talking. There's a lot of people who've been talking to the wall. I mean, the Jewish people have been talking to the wall for a very long time. God spoke to Abraham not because God spoke to Abraham, but because Abraham listened. Abraham had the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual antenna that allowed him to internalize the divine call. My wife can speak to me, but it doesn't mean I'm capable of hearing what she says. There are truths that I heard 20 years ago, but I lacked the openness to really hear them at the time. One of the expressions that we often use is, this person really speaks to me. Oh, this person, this person really speaks to me. They may be speaking to others as well, but somehow with this teacher, I know how to listen, and I get it. Another common expression is, the bird spoke to me. And not because birds don't speak to me. The birds nesting in the trees that I listen to on my walks, they talk to me about all the time, as do any of the other animals around. Probably the squirrels are talking too. Who knows? Maybe even the trees are talking. Maybe even the rocks are talking. They speak, they exude energy, life, messages, songs, chemicals, odors. But do I stop and listen? Do I hear what they have to say? I lack the tools to appreciate their music. And so they may be speaking, but they're not speaking to me. There are so many sounds, so many smells, so many feelings that are hitting us every single day. And do they speak to us? Sometimes, because of a predisposition, they trigger us. They speak to us, but because of our life experience, there are certain people and there are certain words those people say that trigger us. And not everyone is triggering me. But when they speak to me, I don't hear them. I hear my PTSD. I hear my predisposition to what they're saying. And it has nothing to do with them, only to do with me. So when they're speaking at me instead of to me. And I think, because I like to shift the blame, I think that it's all about them, when it actually has nothing to do with them. God speaks to each of us. And God's message is Lech Lecha. Move on. Get out of your rut. Step out of your biases. Step out of your blind spots. Stop living from fear. Stop living from your trauma. Stop living from all the voices that limit you and turn you into a limited and fearful human being. Open yourself up to divine expansiveness. Expand your horizons. Become larger than your smaller self. Allow yourself to go on a journey toward the destination that God will create for you. Even if it means letting go of everything familiar to you. If you need to be reminded, you can buy my favorite book. It's called Harold and the Purple Crayon. It's a page turner. It will remind you. God is always speaking. The question is, are we listening? Go away from your superficial self. It's hard. I could say this. I know how hard it is. Right? I'm speaking. It's sometimes I'm going to say this and it's probably right now triggering you. And it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. It's because all of your defense mechanisms are going up and say, stop, wait. I can't handle this. Change, change, no. 4 quarters for $1. That's the best you're getting. That's the kind of change you want. No, go where? No, I'm fine. I'm safety. I've got a roof over my head. I've got some food in the fridge. I'm not worried about my next meal. It's okay. It's all good. It's going to be good. But is it? Is it really good? Is there a better way? And that ability for us to create a paradigm shift from self-centeredness to infinite centeredness. Just making that up. I think that God calls each of us and says, step away from your narrow perspective and begin to see things from my perspective, from the vantage point of infinite oneness, from the vantage point that's beyond the noise of this world. We get so caught up in the headlines of this world and the noise. And we have an invitation constantly to leave our narrow, selfish orbit and change the world. And in that, we arrive at our truest self, at our deepest core. It's a call to my heart. It's a call to every human heart. But can I even hear it? If I spent most of my life creating and then managing my coping mechanisms, and I managed to polish them to perfection, so they seem sophisticated, so they seem logical, where do I even start with this? How do I even notice the inner still voice resonating in my inner untainted core? And so I love this answer. It was Abraham who heard the call. It was Abraham who acted on it. And because of that, Abraham became the person to whom God spoke these fateful words, because Abraham heard them. And this is how and why he became the first Jew and changed history. I've thought about this a lot. I think about this now a lot. I think about whether or not I can open up myself to that vulnerability. I spend a lot of my time, I've spent a lot of my life victimizing myself. I think I live in a world, it's not totally my fault, I live in a world that's filled with victims. Everyone is either a victim or a persecutor or a hero. And I spent a lot of my life waiting for a hero to come, somebody to come save me, because I'm a victim. And I'm asking today, I'm asking myself, what would my life look like if I wasn't a victim or a perpetrator or a hero? Like, what's the opposite of victim? Well, hero, obviously. No, but that's in what Cartman calls the drama triangle. But what if I could remove myself from that? What if I can take myself out of the drama triangle? I'm not a victim. I had this insane realization yesterday, and I can't get out of my head. It's and this is how this class kind of was created because of this realization, is that the realization was that if I am feeling triggered by someone, I'm also triggering them at the same time. And so often, because I consider myself a victim, when somebody does something to me, I'm like, how could they? What I don't realize is I'm also triggering them. It's a two-way street. And so, if I could remove myself and take myself out of the drama triangle, take myself out of victimhood. I know it's insane today because, we just kind of, the world just looks for the next victim. Like, who can we save? Welcome to the Western world. There are persecutors, and we need to save people from persecutors. And that's it. It's just who can victimize themselves more. If you can victimize yourself more, you become the victim of the moment. We will find the persecutor, and we will persecute the persecutor, because we are the heroes of the world. I mean, and everything fits very neatly into that. Very nice, as they call intersectionality. But what if we can pull ourselves out of that? What if it's not about the victim, and it's not about the persecutor, and it's not about the hero? What is it about? What if I can open up myself to be vulnerable, to become a partner in the process? And so the opposite of victim is co-creator. That God invited us, and God invited Abraham to co-create. And each of us gets that call constantly. We can co-create. We can decide how we want to respond. We can decide who we let in. We can decide who we don't. We can decide who we listen to and who we don't. We can become partners with Abraham and Sarah. And as a result of that, we begin to change the inner and outer landscape of our lives. We even can change the past, because the past, though we think it's so real and raw, it doesn't really exist. All it exists in is our memory. So we keep the past alive by rehashing and going over and over the past. And every time, if I see you and we have a shared history, and you trigger me, it's because it's the past. And so, how do I begin? Where do I begin from? How do I do this? This is very nice in theory. I think it begins with awareness. It begins with hearing the call, noticing. Can you notice the triggers? Can I hold space for the anxiety? Can I be curious about the dissonance and observe the chaos, even the mental chaos, with compassion? And then, can I tune into the inner voice behind them all that's saying this beautiful, this wholesome, this glorious, Lech Lecha, go. I'll tell you a story, and maybe we'll end with that. I want to tell you a story of someone who heard the call of Lech Lecha. His name is Avraham, not just the Avraham of the Torah. His name was Avraham Vetzler. A number of years ago, Rabbi Chaim Heber, who was the Chabad rabbi in Be'ersheva, in Israel, received a call. The man on the other line said, "Hi, my name is Avraham Vetzler. I'm 90, and before God takes my soul, I want to learn Torah." A strange telephone call, to say the least. Sure. Rabbi's greatest dream. He says, "I'll come to your home and we'll study Torah." He says, no, 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 no. You can't come to my home, Rabbi. You can't eat anything in my home. My home is not kosher. I will come to you. I said, okay. Didn't preclude anyone from going to someone's home if the home's not kosher. But fine, you can come to my home. And they began studying Torah together. And after a few months, Avraham celebrated his bar mitzvah at the age of 90. And sometime later, he decided that he would begin observing the Shabbat. And then one day, he called the rabbi and said, I stopped buying non-kosher meat. Come make my kitchen kosher. In 2017, Avraham had a Torah scroll written in the memory of his parents, and the whole community in Beersheba danced as he led the new Torah into the synagogue. At that celebration, Rabbi Heber turns to this Avraham and he said, Avraham, you need to explain the mystery to me. What happened suddenly at the age of 90? He said, Rabbi, I'm a Hungarian Jew. I was born in 1927. And in 1944, we were deported by the Germans. My parents were murdered. My parents were Torah-observant Jews. They were holy and they were pious people. And so I got angry at God and at Judaism. When I came out of the death camps and survived, I decided it's gone and I'm not going back. And I cast away all of Judaism and all of Jewish life. And this went on for years. He said, some time ago, a neighbor invited me for Friday night dinner. And I was reluctant. And I came to their home and I saw the hostess, Chana, light the Shabbat candles. And I hadn't seen a woman light Shabbat candles in more than 80 years. And suddenly I had a flashback. I'm a child at my home in Hungary. It's Friday evening, and my mother lights the candles and prays to God silently with tears streaming down her face. And it all came back to me at that moment. And a few days later, I phoned you and asked you to start learning Torah. Imagine, 80 years ago, a Jewish woman lit candles and asked God that her son grow up to be a good and proud Jew. And then she's taken by the Nazis and murdered. Her son survives but throws it all away. And that flame of Judaism, that flame of Jewishness, it seems, has been extinguished, at least for this family. But 80 years later, that boy, Avraham, hears the call, Lech Lecha. His grandfather, the first Avraham, bequeathed that gift to each of us. And if we listen, we too can hear that call. Rabbi Akiva began learning the Torah at 40. Avraham Vetzler began learning at 90. On October 27th of 2020, the 9th of Cheshvan, 5781, Avraham Vetzler from Hungary returned his soul to its maker in Israel. He was 94. After 75 years, he met his parents again. He died knowing how much he made his father and mother proud, and his mother's prayers at the glowing candles were not in vain. At 90 years old, Avram heard the call of Lech Lecha. And I think of him. And I think, I hope I can hear my call of Lech Lecha before I turn 90. Because I know that God is talking. I know the universe is talking. But sometimes it's too painful. Sometimes it's too difficult to listen. Sometimes I'm too lost in my head to hear it. And so who's Avraham? Why are we not introduced to this person who is later going to be the father of the Jewish people? Because his entire CV, his entire resume is he heard the call when no one else did. Today, in a world where facts don't matter anymore, where people just want to do what they want to do, and so many people are not hearing the call, I think maybe that sound has become more fainted, but it's more important than ever that we listen. Lech Lecha me'artzecha. Leave. Leave the narrowness. Leave the inhibitions. Leave those things that are holding me down. Leave the voices in my head that are telling me you can't, you never will. Leave the child who maybe I am still that child emotionally. I may be biologically an adult, but maybe emotionally I'm not, because I'm still stuck in the past. And this is the best call, the hardest call, to leave the past. And we're not going to forget it. No one's going to forget it. We're not going to forget them. We're not going to forget what happened. But we don't have to live in it. We don't have to carry it on our forehead. We can move on. The survivors, they never forgot, but they didn't wear it on their forehead. I think of Alana's mother. We're still in the year and we're mourning her and saying Kaddish for her. Her words, she said, I never wanted to carry Hitler on my back. The Holocaust survivors did this in their actions. They didn't have to say it. They lived it. I'm watching now the hostages. If you haven't read Eli Sharabi's book, it's imperative reading for everyone. It's hard. It's a hard read. But it's not gory. It's a beautiful story of a person who can have the mental capacity to Lech Lecha, to survive. Through the harshest torture. That's our call. It's the call of today. And the call is not survive. The call is to thrive. We're not survivors. We don't have to get stuck into the patterns. We're not victims. We're not perpetrators. And we're not heroes. We're co-creators. And we have the ability to co-create our next chapter, to co-create our lives, to co-create our responses, to co-create this beautiful life. And by us doing this, it's going to affect those around us, those we love, and then our communities, and then the world. And that is how we change the world. Hashem should bless us, that we should hear the call of Lech Lecha, that we should live with this portion, live with the story of Avram, live with the story of all the Avrams that came after that Avram. And Hashem should bless us and give us the ability to have the power, the fortitude, the strength to fight all of that which holds us back, and allow us to live and to be. And with that, I wish you a beautiful Shabbat, a Shabbat of Lech Lecha.
Recording stopped.